Dude, why the hell is Sacramento State in the MAC conference?
Oh, I was
The
looking forward
people
to how
must
you're.
know.
So this is a very weird arrangement. Yes, Sacramento State is joining a conference with teams in the Rust Belt and UMass. Which, by the way, the other day I got excited when I saw the map. I thought UMass was part of the Rust Belt too. They're not. But the rest of the teams are part of the Rust Belt. This is not unprecedented, by the way. Don't forget that for 3 years in the early 2000s, UCF was in the MAC. And that was a very weird arrangement.
I do
However, this is
remember
a,
that.
yeah, like probably like an old video game. Like you play it and you're like, oh, yeah, here you go. UCF's in the MAC.
Yeah,
But obviously, this is a little bit different because we're talking about a team all the way in the West Coast. To simply put this, like the first answer is money. That's why. I think this became like a 5-year deal. Sacramento State is really paying to get into the MAC, and I think paying to enter a conference is actually more of a newer concept. Usually there's a waiting period before you can take advantage of like TV revenue or something. Um, but this is where you're actually physically handing over money to join a conference. This is kind of new. And I think it's another reason why we should get rid of the bowl ban rule because I think these teams are already kind of fronting the bill by having to pay to join conferences. So this is definitely a weird new thing. Sacramento State kind of floated it out first. North Dakota State kind of took advantage of it, got into the Mountain West, and now Sacramento State finally pulled it through here. And I think North Dakota State's price kind of upped the max price for Sacramento State because they're like, hey, you guys are further out. You don't bring what North Dakota State does, so fork over some extra cash. Um, but this is a
it's a
5-year
shakedown.
deal.
That's a shakedown, dude.
They definitely shook them down. They were like, hey, you want to join, like you are going to give us this, you're going to pay for the travel expenses and all of that. And I mean the weird part is like they literally announced this a 5-year deal. So like that within the announcement already kind of tells you this is a short-term arrangement. This is not permanent. Sacramento
A means
State
to an ends.
Sacramento State has been a program with high aspirations ever since their president took over. Their president, Luke Wood, took over in 2023. He was the guy that was like, hey, we're going to make the Sacramento's team, we're going to make Sacramento State a huge part of this city. That involved getting them up to the next level. At the time when he took over, like the program was in good shape in football too. They had a year, they were just coming off a year where they were undefeated in the regular season, and then they lost in the playoffs in the wildest playoff game ever. They lost to Incarnate Word 66-63. There is no overtime involved in that score. Straight up in regulation. Both teams
Jeez.
scored in the last minute of that game. So they were in a good position already, and he was like, we're going to further this by getting them to FBS. But, they were still looked down upon by some of the conferences. I think some of his messaging kind of was a little bit out there.
A
He
little
called the
Kurt
FCS
Signetti-esque.
not quite, a little bit more cringy than Kurt Signetti. Because like Kurt Signetti could, when Kurt Signetti talks, like he's going to cash a check that he's writing.
It's true.
For a long time, there was stuff like, he called the FCS, I think Bush League or something. And a lot of teams really took offense to that. They were ready to prove it to him. Open season, South Dakota State makes them feel the pain from the start. And then later in the year, he calls Montana the Pandas for some reason. I don't know why. This is like, yeah, the weirdest trash talk I ever seen. Then Montana crushed him. So like, he's very much a character, but I also like what he has in mind. Like, I want to make Sacramento State this massive program. And that, we got to get to the FBS level to do that. Maybe his messaging behind what FCS is was not great. I don't agree with it, but I also like that he was like, we're going to give Sacramento an FBS team. We're going to make it a big deal. And, they had to get the FBS to get there. So this was their in to get into FBS because it sounds like the Mountain West is not interested in this arrangement. Pac-12 was not interested, even though the Pac-12 definitely needs a team. And Conference USA, maybe they weren't interested in Conference USA, maybe they preferred the MAC. But so they get to FBS, and the MAC, on the other hand, they're getting a nice cash injection out of all this.
It's true. It's true. When you think about it, just the distance, right? We're talking coast to coast. You have Sacramento State, playing in UMass definitely has a football team, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I was just thinking in terms of Boston, then I was like, wait a minute, like what if they don't have one? Yes, of course. Of course they have one. We're talking coast to coast, baby. That's crazy. They're going to be traveling a lot.